Welcome along to the LitFest channel here on Emirates, where we celebrate the written word by speaking with authors, all of whom attended the 12th annual Emirates Festival of Literature, or as it's known in Dubai, the LitFest. Each year, hundreds of authors fly to Dubai, on Emirates of course, to take part in the LitFest. And here on Emirates, we're delighted to present the cream of the crop. Next up, a young man from the Philippines who in 2014 won top prize in Apprentice Asia. Part of the prize was working as Chief of Staff to Tony Fernandez, CEO of Air Asia. His name is Jonathan Yabut, and he's written of his experiences in a book entitled From Grit to Great, subtitled The Journey to Becoming Asia's Apprentice. Jonathan, well, welcome to Emirates, welcome to Dubai, and welcome to the LitFest. It's lovely to see you here.
Thank you so much for having me here, having such a great time in the LitFest.
And how's your sessions going, or how are you interacting with your audience?
We've had 3 sessions so far, and I'm doing my last session after this. It's sold out, so that's a great thing to have. And yeah, I haven't met so many people, so many authors in my life, so it's such a great opportunity.
Now, are you a full-time author?
I do books, and at the same time, I do a lot of motivational speeches, motivational talks for companies. I'm on my 3rd book now. My first book, which is called From Grit to Great.
Yes, do you want to show that to the camera?
This is the book. It's my maiden book, published in 2014, and it was published right after I've won the Apprentice Asia. And it shares the stories of what I've been through from humble beginnings into winning the Apprentice TV show.
Right, let's go into detail then. What were those humble beginnings?
So I come from Manila, born and raised. I've lived until the age of 17 in the slums of Manila, in Tondo. So I've been in scholarships all throughout my life, from grade school down to university. And it's one of those moments in your life when you feel you have the talent, but you don't have the opportunity. And someone just needs to give you that nudge. And that's the part that I've always been thankful for, because I think if it weren't for those scholarships, I don't think I wouldn't be where I am today.
Did you get much encouragement from your family?
My parents are your typical Asian tiger parents who would push you to be your best. And so every day they would push me to give and be number 1 in class. So
But it must have been tough growing up in the slums, though. You didn't have access to a lot of the facilities that other people of your generation have.
That's right, and I feel just so lucky. Home wasn't the best thing to be in, but when I would go to school, I had really great teachers who would take good care of me. Sometimes I wouldn't have money to spend for lunch, and sometimes my classmates would rather give me instead. So I think that caring environment, that ability to ask for help if you need to, was one of the secrets of getting through those years.
Did you get to go to university?
Yes, I did, and I was also under scholarship. I finished economics at the University of the Philippines, and from 1st year down to the 4th year, also all scholarships. So that was, again, another nudge that got me through into the corporate world.
So there you are, you graduated from university, you're starting off on your economic life, your business life. How did the opportunity to take part in the Apprentice Asia come about?
So I was a big fan of the show. When I was 17 years old, I would pretend to be one of the contestants while watching it every night. Donald Trump, the first ever host, would ask questions from the competitors. I would pause the episode and I would pretend that I was one of the contestants. And I would compare my answers to their answers. And that was my habit every night. And one day when I saw the TV commercial that there was going to be Apprentice Asia, and I said, I'm going to be here. And so I submitted my application form, 34 pages, and 6 months later, after so many tests and evaluation, I got in.
And tell me about the format of Apprentice Asia. Was it the same format as the one in the UK and the one in the USA?
It is the same. So in our case, there were 12 competitors, and every episode you're given a task: marketing, sales, negotiation. If you win as a team, you proceed to the next round. If you lose, you guys have to debate against each other and prove that you shouldn't be fired. And the iconic "you're fired" will be, shared by the host.
So who was the equivalent of Donald Trump or Alan Sugar?
For Apprentice Asia, it's Mr. Tony Fernandez. He's the CEO and founder of Air Asia, which is the world's largest low-cost airline.
And is he a very well-known and respected business figure in the Philippines?
Yeah. Here's the interesting part. I didn't know him before I joined. He was a nobody in the Philippines because he was bigger in other countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. And then when I joined the show, I had to research about him just so I know how to answer his questions.
So how did the competition go?
Very competitive. So this is the only franchise, arguably, that has different nationalities. Unlike Apprentice UK or Apprentice United States, you have people from similar country. But in this case, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, we even had an expatriate from France who represented China. So my biggest challenge was communication, understanding how a person would decide based on his style, based on the universe that he was operating in. And there were so many moments that I had to adjust, that I thought that my way was the only way of doing things. And apparently, here's another way of doing it, and yet they can prove that it is effective still.
What were some of the tasks you were given? Can you remember?
The task that I will never forget, which really shook my world, was we were asked to trade stocks on a platform. It was sponsored by a software company. We were given $20,000 and we lost money in that episode. We still won, only because we were the ones who had the least amount of losses. So that shook my world because I never traded in the stock market. And I guess the competition is about pushing you to beyond your limits.
So there you are, you contest the different rounds, you get through the different rounds. Tell me about the final.
The finale episode is between Philippines and Singapore. And the interesting part was that the two finalists were the youngest contestants.
So one of them was you?
Yes, I was 27 that time. The competitor from Singapore was 25 years old. She's a lawyer. And I felt that Mr. Tony Fernandez wanted both of us to be in the finale because she believed that age shouldn't be an issue for you to be able to get things done. And our episode was about organizing a charity ball for his friends. So in 3 days, we had to food, banquet, program, music, everything for 2 days for 200 guests. We were given people to help us out, and yep, I felt comfortable because this is my line of work. Back in the Philippines, I arrange events. So I felt like I was a fish swimming in my, the comfortable water that I had. So I was lucky, I guess, as well.
Were you working together on organizing the ball, or did you each have to do it separately?
That's a question. We both had to have our own banquets. So they had to compare the kinds of food that we chose, the kinds of music that we had to play. And I guess years and years of doing it so many times helped me to be able to do the best. And yep.
So there you were, you'd organized your banquet, you'd organized the ball, the food, the music, and so on and so forth. So it came to the final decision, the final nail-biting decision. Can you remember that day?
I still remember it because Tony, the host, he threw a curveball. So after 10 episodes before, every time that he would fire you, he would always do this: "You're fired." And so when he was calling out my name, when he was deciding, he also did this. So the moment, those few seconds that he was doing this, I thought, all right, this is it, I'm the first runner-up. But what he did instead, which the camera caught, but they edited it out when they showed it, was he did this, and then he did this: "You're hired." And so when he did that, like, wow, this is it. Like, all those weeks and weeks of hard work and finally paid off. And then after the show, I told him, wow, that was a great joke, Tony. I really thought you were going to chop my head off. And I thanked him afterwards.
And so I would imagine you immediately assumed celebrity status. Did you have your picture in the newspapers? Were you interviewed?
That was one of the perks of winning the show. And it was my first time to experience my, taste of mini celebrity. But I felt the power of getting that status was really inspiring more people. And that was the reasons why I wrote the book. The book was actually an offshoot of the posts that I had on Facebook. So every after episode, I would post what happened behind the scenes in the show. These were the leadership lessons that I've learned. Here's what I learned about working with different cultures. And people started liking and commenting on them. And so one day, a publisher approached me and said, "John, can we collect all those posts because so many people like and comment on your Facebook posts. And that book, for example, is a collection of
And
those
it's called
posts.
From Grit to Great. And the grit, presumably, was life in the slums. And
Yes.
great is where you are now.
Yes, yes.
What was the prize? What was the benefit for you of winning, apart from the celebrity status?
You get to work for Mr. Tony Fernandez for a year, of which I actually extended for 3 years because I learned so much, and a 6-digit figure salary, which is a typical prize of an apprentice in all countries.
And it was a very worthwhile experience working
Very
at Tony?
worthwhile, apart from the free flights that you get. For me, the biggest prize was meeting so many people in my life that I felt I would have never met at all have I been clocking the same day job in Manila. So that's the most thankful for.
So, what's happening in your life now, John? Are you still working with Tony Fernandez?
So I've left the company, I've left Tony in 2015. And my ultimate goal, which I've been very vocal about, is I want to enter politics in the Philippines. I want to do some changes. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to be in the corporate world forever, that's going to be too slow. I need a good, fast source of cash cow funding because I want to be independently funded with no person that would be asking things for me when I get to the position. And so I jumped ship, went to the entrepreneurship world, created my own consultancy firm. After all, I've won some good cash from the show. And today we do marketing consultancy services. We manage digital marketing for companies who need to promote their products and services. At the same time, we do talent optimization, which means if you have employees who need training on public speaking, reading body language, leadership, one of our best-selling topics is how to manage the millennials in the workplace. So many companies invite us all around the world to conduct those workshops.
And you yourself are a motivational speaker.
Yes.
So when you stand up in front of businessmen, many of whom I suspect are older than you,
Yes.
what insights, we haven't got time to go through everything, but
Yeah.
pull out a few of the insights that you've learned from your experience so far.
Most people are afraid of public speaking because of the fear of judgment, the fear of they might think that I am not the person they thought I was. And in many times of my career, I always felt I was judged because I was too young. So a CEO who has so much rich experience would say, why would I listen to this guy when he's 20 years, 10 years younger than I am? And I always thought to myself, that judgment is natural in all of us because it's our duty to judge based on whether a person could be a threat or ally to our survival. 2 months ago, I was having a visit to the dentist, and the dentist she looked like she was 17 years old, and she asked me to open my mouth. And I hesitated, and that's because unconsciously, she looked too young. And that kind of experience made me realize everyone thinks the same way because our brains are hardwired to look after our own survival. So when these guys think that I'm too young, I'm not going to take it personally because that's just how they see me. But my goal now is to move forward and say, I'm going to prove you guys wrong. And every time I prove them wrong that I've done a good job, it's one of the best feelings in the world.
So if I was to fast forward, say 20 years, you and I were sitting here now, would you still be running your management company or would you be wearing a very different hat?
I wish and I need to be wearing a different hat. I have someone right now in my radar who I think I would pass on the baton for my business. In 20 years' time, I would love to be in the Senate of the Philippines. So I want to be the Secretary for Transportation or Tourism, run for Senate twice, and at the age of 55, 56, I want to be the President of the Philippines.
You do?
I have an Excel sheet that has color-coded bars that has all the phases of the number of years it will take me. And every time I do my talks, I already do my campaigns and tell them, please remember me because this is my vision for my country. So.
Hey, I hope you succeed. You have a very clear vision of where you want to be.
Yeah, thank you.
And of all the, I've visited the Philippines before. It's a beautiful country and very, very friendly people. But if you were president right now, what would be top of your agenda to fix?
3 things: transportation, and that means getting someone from point A to point B. I think a lot of countries in the Western world take it for granted because it's a given, right? You wake up in the morning, you take the tram, you take the train, you know you're going to be there in 15 minutes. Many people don't know that in my country, that's not the situation. We take sometimes 2 hours to get from one place to another. And no matter how talented you are, if you don't have that ability to be mobile, all your ambitions are going to be cut. So transportation is important. Education is also important. We are a country of 100 million, and you need to create a good talent out of that. Your economy is only as good as your workers and your labor force. So I would want to push more budget into education. Third is healthcare. Again, and they're all aligned. When you have a workforce that's not as healthy as you would want, the company's resources, the government's resources all get drained, because even if instead of you pushing your life into getting things done, you're in the hospital. And that's because you probably have poor hygiene, poor diet. Those things are basics that I feel that my country deserves, because for someone who's traveled so much, I've lived so many times in Emirates flights, and every time I'm in a flight, I would think about, if they can enjoy that, why can't my people as well? And that is the reason why every morning when I wake up, it pushes me to think, I want to be that guy who can do that change.
And when you come to Dubai and you look around and see what's been achieved here for the last 30 years or so, what impressions do you get?
Dubai for me is always an inspiration. It's that city that proves to you that in a span of only 20 or 30 years, if you want something so bad, you're never going to give an excuse for it. And every time I see how Dubai, barren desert land 30 years ago, and look at it now, it proves to me that if they can do it, my hometown can also do it. And what the other strength of this city is diversity. The idea that differences of people is not a hindrance, but rather you leverage on people's differences as their strengths. I have so many brothers and sisters, Filipinos here in Dubai, and they contribute to the economy. And that's because they can have something that they can offer, and other nationalities can also offer the same thing. So for me, proof of diversity is a good thing, not a bad thing that many people would rather think today.
Jonathan, it's been brilliant talking to you. I feel inspired. You're the first interview of the day, and I feel inspired for the rest of the day. Let's
Thank you so much.
Remind our passengers on Emirates about your book, From
Grit to Great.
From Grit to Great. It's been great meeting you.
Thank you so much.
I wish you every success, and I hope in 20 years' time I'll be sitting opposite the
Thank
President
you.
of the Philippines.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.